Hey, welcome again. This is Rob Thompson with Game Plan You Today. This is the podcast about you are next up. You're on the bench. You're out there seeking a career in the sports industry, right? You're not really sure where you fit in. How do you open a door? What's that first job going to be? Remember, where you are right now in college is typically going to be someone from college, whether it's a coach, whether it's an administrator, whether it's someone from the career counseling department, or whether it's a professor that you absolutely, that I guess you would consider your mentor, that could help you get a job. So remember, it's all about the discovery. You have a long runway to discover where you fit in. Typically, 65% of you will not go into the career and go into the industry that you studied. That's just the statistics, nationally, and that has been happening for years. So it's all about the discovery of your skill set, all about the discovery of where you fit in. It's not always about chasing your passion. It's about chasing probably the best people to work with when you're first starting out. And remember, they're going to be the ones that are going to help you propel your career. So we have a great guest today. Amelia Hunter, she's the Senior Human Resources Business Partner for Learfield IMG College. It is an unbelievable place to start your career and be a part of. I know this organization for a very long time, so once we come back, we're going to bring her on and we'll get going. So stay with us. This is Rob Thompson again. You're watching Game Plan You Today. All right, so we're back. You know what? Welcome, and I apologize. I get your name wrong. I said it wrong.
No, actually, Emily was my nickname growing up, so that just means that we go way back.
We do. It's ridiculous. So, well, thank you for your time. I know we got to know each other a little bit when I did was part of this unbelievable program that you ran at Learfield IMG College. I guess it was a staff development program.
That's right.
So let's start here. Let's
Okay.
go. Let's go back. We want to talk about your career and how you got to this point. So you went to Texas Tech,
I did. Yes.
and what was your mindset when you were there? Assuming a lot of the kids and students that are watching right now in that similar situation, what was your mindset about your transition from graduating into a career? Where were you thinking then?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I remember not knowing what I wanted to do. I was just, I pursued a degree in business because I thought that that was safe enough that I could do anything with that degree, right? It would allow me some flexibility. My senior year, I started preparing for going to law school. I thought that that was probably my next step, and so I started studying for the LSAT, took a couple practice tests, and then was kind of set on that being my next step. And the closer I got to graduation, the more it became clear to me that that really wasn't what I wanted to do. And before I jumped into a bunch of debt, right, and a couple of really difficult years, I said, let me go out and let me work a little bit. And I've got plenty of time to maybe figure out what feels like the appropriate next step. And
Yeah.
so I did a lot of different stuff after college. You can probably look at my LinkedIn and feel a little confused because I worked for a nonprofit company that helps low income kids, low income schools get money from the government to have better food programs and more healthy options. And so I did that for a while. I worked at a resort for a while in the kitchen as a food and beverage coordinator for fancy events, and then somehow kind of landed in HR where I really think found my calling, right? Which is to help leaders focus on the talent within the organization and how to maximize our talent. And so that, in a nutshell, is kind of how what I was thinking as I was graduating college
How
at
did
Tech.
what? Well, what was that point? What was that point in your career, or that point of your career discovery process, that you really figured out that you love helping people, right? Because it seems like at the core, that's who you are, right?
Yeah, yeah,
How,
absolutely. That is how I am, and I appreciate that you like made that connection. But I think it was when I was working at the Woodlands Resort. Something interesting happened. Was um, I was part of this food and beverage team made up of predominantly Spanish speaking individuals, and there was no one in HR who spoke Spanish. And so those people didn't have a resource. And so I, being someone who speaks Spanish fluently, was able to connect that dot. And that's really when I kind of had an aha moment that this is what I like to do. I like to help people. I like to be kind of in the know or in the middle between the organization and the person, right? And helping kind of figure out what's in the best interest of both parties.
what did you find? And I know you've worked in corporate America,
Yes.
Deloitte, and you kind of came up through the ranks. And
Yes.
how has Learfield IMG? How have you seen the differences, especially in the sports industry, and the level of talent that it's able to attract? What have you been able to kind of step back and be able to put the right people in the right places, knowing what some of those leadership teams are going to be like in certain places? What have you learned along that process, and how does that help you kind of match up those groups?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So I think one of the things that I learned when I got into this role with Learfield IMG College is that people in the sports industry are very passionate, right? And that you see the passion of the athletes on the field, and that really translates throughout the industry. That's just a very passionate group of people. And so for me, being in this role where I kind of help leaders assemble teams and hopefully help them assemble high performing teams, it's really important to understand kind of the different dynamics of that team. And so there's a lot that we offer in the way of kind of you know uh, self reflection or self understanding work. We actually provide our employees the opportunity to take a survey and figure out what their strengths are, and give them access to what the organization's strengths are, or maybe what that team's individual strengths are and weaknesses, and so they can see how they mesh up um, with those groups. And so I think it's all about self reflection and kind of understanding who you are, and what kind of environment makes you feel the most successful, and trying to seek that out in your next opportunity.
When you look at this group of what we call next up talent, right,
Hmm.
coming up through the pipeline, there's certain characteristics, and I'm sure you try to pick out, because a resume doesn't always see. Oh,
Right.
and here's another thing. How much? Because I always tell kids, unlock your social media, like unlock your Instagram, just unlock it. That's sometimes it was a game changer for me to hire somebody. But what do you find now are the characteristics that you are seeking out in that next up level young executive coming up through the ranks?
Yes, that's a great question. Digital. Digital is the way of the future. So I absolutely on that kind of thought. Unlock your social media. I think these people that are coming up next, right? These leaders, people who are listening to this podcast, you have a very unique perspective because you've grown up in a very digital environment. And so you get this point, right? You get how business can be maximized on the internet and through social connection and digital advertising, right? And those are all skills and expertise that companies are looking for, whether you're in sports or software or, you know, whatever industry. It's just such a desired um, skill and understanding in people who are coming up in the business world. And so to the extent that you can show that you understand that language and that skill and that technique, that world, then you're steps ahead of others, right?
Yeah, no, you are steps ahead, and in a lot of, I have this conversation a lot about getting your MBA, going to grad, getting your master's in sport management, whatever that means. And I just don't think anything replaces experience, And so how much of that do you put into when you're looking at making a recommendation to some of your leaders? You like when you're filtering through the 500 resumes for a account executive role. Does it always have to be from the sports industry? Like, what are some of the key triggers that you say, let me put this over to that pile because I want to come back to that one? What are those things?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Rob, you were on a call with the entire Learfield IMG College company because we want to be a more diverse and more inclusive company. And one of the ways to do that is to think differently about how we've hired in the past, right? And so we've looked historically, we've tended to look at a pool of people who have experience with sponsorship sales, and that was the pool that we fished from. And while that landed us some really amazing talent, it's often limited our ability to bring in others with different backgrounds and perspectives and ideas. And so we are kind of now challenging our leaders to think outside the box, right? Don't look look at sponsorship sales, but look outside of that, right? What about people who have experience in medical sales? Is that something that if we taught them the ropes, could they come in and be successful in our organization? And so experience is very important. I know it can be frustrating because you look at a job posting and they ask for experience, but it's an entry level role. And it's like, how do you maneuver through that? And the suggestion that I always give to people seeking a job in this space is everyone has experience. It's a matter of connecting the dots for the person looking at your resume and doing a good job of showing that this skill that you have, even though it's not in sports, is a transferable skill, right? And sometimes you have to do the work to connect the dots and identify the language and how you say it. But what we do at Learfield IMG College isn't vastly different than what another salesperson in another organization or field does. It's just a matter of the person looking at your resume understanding that you have those skills and those strengths that if we taught you our business, that you could grab onto that and flourish. I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. I mean, I look at it the same way as, when you look at people who, when you use this hiring salespeople, it's like, could you smile and dial, smile and
Yes.
dial, smile and dial. And you mentioned it before, social selling and digital networking is a certain skill set in and of itself. And the one barometer I would always look at is, let me see how many engaged followers you have in your own social networks. What are you doing in LinkedIn right now that's important? Do you have a blog? Do you have a podcast? What are some of the things? And a gentleman that worked with us at Game Plan U, he was an intern, and he got more involved with us, and he said, I'm trying to break into the industry more and more. What do? I said, start a podcast and start calling up every executive in the industry that you want to work for and interview them. Every single team executive that he interviewed offered him a job.
Oh
and
my
then
goodness.
now actually today's his first day with the Tennessee Titans. So
Wow.
so there's more ways to get in front of people.
Hmm.
It's hard to get in front of people who are in positions like you, right? Or in Charles, and it's because you get so bombarded with so much information, and someone that has a podcast or a website that has the things that they've done, those things I think, you just got to be craftier now than you've ever been before, I
Yes.
guess.
Yes. That's
So
right.
let's final question,
Okay.
and so I teed you up for this one. So if you go back, if you think about when you were 18, 19 years old, right? When you're back in college and freshman, sophomore year, and all the things that you know now, all the challenges, all the anxiety, probably all the stress about your career, all the things maybe you did or you missed out on, or all the things that maybe you should have taken more advantage of, the people around you, mentors. What would that advice be if you were able to kind of flash back and have that conversation with you again? What advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you did tee me up for this one, and I'm so thankful because that is a difficult question to answer. But if I could go back and talk to myself, I would tell myself two things. One is it's not always going to be what you know. Sometimes it's who you know, and so as any opportunity that you get, you have to network. You have to network your butt off with anyone and everyone that comes in your path, because that's going to be really important in creating connections that can elevate you to the next level. Two, kind of in that same vein, is you have to have mentors and you have to have sponsors. And those are two different things, right? A mentor is someone who can advise you, who can help you build your career vision, who can give you guidance about what they've done. A sponsor is a senior level executive or person that is going to advocate for you and that's going to drive your career vision. And so a sponsor is going to be someone that says, "Hey Learfield, hire this person. You will be better off because of it." And they're willing to put their reputation and their name at stake for you. And you have to have those people in your corner. And then the second thing is presentation is key. And so you will find, what I've found is that when we post a job, we will get hundreds and hundreds of applications just because this is a sports job, right? And so I had to do my due diligence of making sure that my resume and my LinkedIn profile are top tier, right? That there's no missing information, that if someone looking at my profile, um, could see that I stand out from others in similar pods, right? And then the last piece is what I mentioned earlier: is don't worry so much about the skills or the experience that you don't have. Look at what you do have and figure out a way to focus on your transferable skills, because everyone has things that they've accomplished in the past or achievements that can be transferred to a current job. It's all a matter of how you communicate those skills. And so focus on those two things and you'll be better off because of it. And these are all lessons that I wish I learned at 1920 and not, you know 30, 31. But here we are, and I'm better because of it.
Well, I'm just learning them now at 53, so I'm up a little bit behind. Amelia Hunter, thank you so much for your time. And how do people, where are you posted for careers at Learfield IMG College? How do they find that?
Yes, absolutely. So, our website, learfieldimgcollege.com, we've got a section on careers and working with us. And so you are able to look and see all of the open positions that we have at any time. We're also very active on LinkedIn. So if you follow Learfield IMG College, we typically share the jobs that we have open either at our properties, or at our corporate offices. And then lastly is, if I can be helpful to anyone, I welcome that opportunity. And so you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or by email at amelia.hunter@learfieldimgcollege.com, or you can reach out to our talent acquisition team at talentacquisition@learfieldimg.com.
There you go. It's a tongue twister.
Yes, it is.
Well, thank you, my friend Emily, who speaks fluent Spanish.
That's right.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time today, and I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Rob. Appreciate you.
That's Amelia. This is Rob. You're watching Next Up Podcast on Game Playing You today. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.